Hello, I'm Rick Stivers of YoungMartin'sReels. Apparently, these Mitchell 300s are pretty popular for you guys because about the most views I've ever gotten has been on a Mitchell 300 reel. And the one I did, the video I did earlier this week on the oscillation gear synchronizer seems to have taken off and gone haywire. I've got like 10 times more views on that in 3 days than any of my other reel videos, period. So I decided, since one of the other viewers was having an issue with another part, I thought, hey, let's go ahead and do one more video on that. And I think in the end, my old Mitchell 300 video is one of the earliest ones I did, and the quality of the video is pretty poor. So I'm probably going to make another one to replace that one. But this one, what we're going to do is I'm going to show John what to look for on his reel. He's missing parts apparently, and he wants to know what to do with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this thing up and go through it, but we're not going to do the entire reel. We're only going to do the Bale assembly. So let's back out just a little bit, and we want to be able to give John a good clear view of what's going on in here. So there we go. All right, this is kind of a noisier one. It works great, but it is a little bit on the noisy side. But we're going to need to take the side case off, and we're going to do all of that in fast forward. I'm going to leave the handle in place. We're going to take the side case off, sit it over to the side, but we want to be able to take this axle shaft out because we want to get underneath here, underneath the baffle plate, and I want to explain what's going on in here and how this works. So let's get to this. Okay, we're going to leave that entire assembly right there, just like that, because we're not going to mess with any of this part in this video. So we're just going to set it over to the side, get back over here. We are going to remove this gear. This is the part that we did the video on earlier this week. So we're not going to mess with that. We're going to lift that over to the side. And now we're going to take the axle shaft out. With the axle shaft out, we can now remove this nut. Okay, John, and this is where you want to be careful if you're taking this part out. You've got this nut. This is your axle nut. Take that off, and then you've got a baffle plate underneath here. You can lift your baffle plate off, and if you try to just reach in and grab hold of the baffle plate and pull it out, you may have a little bit of difficulty. What you can do, though, is lift up on the rotor just a little bit and then grab hold of the baffle plate, and it will come right out. Now, what you want to keep track of is these shims washers that go up under here. See? All right, this one actually seems to be missing the plastic one. There should be a black plastic one that goes under here also. Okay, so we're going to hang on to those, make sure we don't lose the ones that are in here. And let's continue on. And this is the view that you said you didn't get to see very well. All right, this is your trip lever. And this trip is actually activating off of this lobe right here, bent down. Okay, when this rotates around, it catches on that and it pushes on this lever right here. Okay, now you said you're missing something, and I'm not real sure what it is you're missing. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through and talk about how this whole thing works. So let's slide this off. Now, before we do, check and see if there's a shim on here. It's not. Okay, the one shim washer that we've got, this is the one you do not want to lose because it will throw everything off. Do not lose this shim washer right here. Okay, so leave it in there. There's our cam plate right here. And notice that there's a keyway on this baffle plate. Okay, we're going to set that over to the side. And we now have this plate. We're going to zoom in a little bit because I want you to be able to see really good what we're dealing with here. Okay, we're going to take this screw out. Out comes the screw, and then you don't want to lose this one. There is a spring right here. Get hold of that spring. Get it separated. There we go. Okay. Now, if you look on the bottom of this lever, There's a post right there. Okay, and that's what that spring is hooking underneath. All right, now I don't know what part you're missing. I don't know if you're missing this lever assembly. I don't know if you're missing this screw right here that holds the spring assembly, or if you're missing the spring. I don't know what it is you're missing. But these are the basic parts. There's not much to this thing. All right. Now, just to be on the safe side, we're going to go ahead also and take off the bail. We're going to start off with the non-complicated side over here, where there's nothing but a screw. This will also allow us to see whether or not this bail is bent. Okay, the bail, this should fit just a little bit tighter. See how this is separated just a little bit? This should fit just a little bit tighter. Now, it shouldn't be slam up against it where it's riding against it, but it should be a little bit closer than what it is right now. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to bend this in just a little bit, and then check it. There, see how that is? Now, it's not riding real tight against it, but it also isn't holding out where it's going to be pushing against the screw. Okay, so that's the first thing we wanted to check. Second thing, we're going to go ahead now and take this screw out. And when it does, the spring is going to let go. Okay, now let's go ahead and take this side off. There we go, spring's out. There's our spring. There's our bail. Now, if you need to, you can just take this screw out right here and remove this spring. But most people never need to do that. You can clean all of this without having to take that off. All right? So, now let's backtrack it and put it back together. Okay? First thing we got to do is see about resetting this spring. So we're going to set this. If you look at your spring, you've got one post here that's turned out and one is turned up. You want the out one to go through this slot right over here, like that. Okay. Next, you're going to bring this over where it's going to ride, and we want to get this hole. See this post right here? We're going to slip that into this hole right there. Okay. Now this is going to be down here like this, and that's okay. Because now we're going to come back and we're going to take this screw and put it in just a little bit. We don't want it in a lot. We just want it in part way, just a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to rotate this up. But that spring has got to stay in that hole. So tighten it down a little more, like so. Okay. Now you're starting to feel tension on it. But now when you go to bring it up, it's going to hit right here. See that corner? It's going to want to hit right there. So you've got to bring it up and around that corner. Once you've got it there, now you can feel the real tension on the spring. Okay? And at this point, you're going to go ahead and start to tighten it down. Go to the other side, and let's pop this up and put it in place. Now, you can go ahead and tighten this screw down the rest of the way. And there is your bail. Now, notice that it's not locking up. Well, the reason it's not locking up is because we don't have this trip lever installed yet. Okay? So, now we're going to come back and reinstall that trip lever. All right, the best thing to do when you're reinstalling this trip line is to go ahead and get your wire over here out of the way as far as you can get it, and then take your trip lever and install it. The Z goes up, goes down through the hole like that, and then drops into place like so. The best thing to do when putting this in is to make sure that the spring right now is on top of the trip lever, like so. Okay, like that, because you're going to want it underneath it eventually, but right now you want to start off with it on top. Okay, you got it like that. You're ready now to put the screw in. Put the screw in the hole. Start to tighten it down. Now notice that it's kind of binding a little bit. You're going to have to move it around to make sure that that screw with the shoulder goes down through that trip lever and doesn't get caught and trapped on top of it. Okay, with that done, now that moves freely. Go ahead and move it over, and you can go ahead and lock it in place right there, like so. Now, you're going to want to put this trip lever spring back on. So the best thing to do now is grab hold of it, bring it around, and let it go just under that arm, and it's going to hook on that post underneath that we looked at. There you go. There's your trip lever installed. Okay? And the way that's going to work is as it comes around, it catches on that baffle plate, and the screwdriver work. As it trips it, there you go. And you can see how it catches over here. Okay, John, I'm hoping that that gives you the information that you needed to make all of this go back together the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and reinstall your baffle plates and get all this back together. Okay, you've got your shim washer under here. We're going to drop this back on. Let's go ahead and put a little grease in here while we're here. Slide that on like so. There we go. Okay, now we want to reinstall our shim washers, and if you've got the black plastic one, the black plastic one should be on the top. Okay. And let's go ahead and drop the baffle plate back in, line it up with the trip, and let's go ahead and put on the nut. It's got a locking side. The locking side goes down. Tighten it down. If we've done everything correctly, as this rotates around, it should trip just like that. Let me back it out so you can see it again. Okay, if we've done it all correctly, as we trip that back, when we bring it around, when it hits the trip lever right here, it trips over. Okay? Now also we want to make sure that it's not hitting as it goes around, because if it does, it'll be going chip, 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 chip all the time, and you don't want that. Okay, we got that done. Let's slide our axle shaft back in, and let's wipe it off and put on some new grease or oil. I'm going to oil it. I like oiled axle shafts because it tends to make the reel run smoother. Mitchell 300s have a lot of gears, and all those gears are going to be greased. So the less actual resistance that I add in it by adding in extra grease will help. Okay, we're going to put in the oscillation plate. And you can tell if you got it in right because you can grab your axle shaft and slide it like that. Okay, now we're going to put in this gear, and I've already talked about how to put that in correctly on the other video. So let's take a look, see if we got it right. If we do, you can rotate it around all the way 360, and we can. So we've got that correct. Oh, before we forget, let's go ahead and put this other screw in this other side. Okay, now we've got the screws in, and now it should trip, and it does. Now we're going to set the side plate back in. Now, if you just try to take this and flip it over and stick it in there, there's a good possibility the gears are going to pop off and bounce around. You don't want that, so it works best if you just kind of stand it up on its side like this to put it back together. Okay. Okay, so it's all back together. A little bit on the noisy side, but it definitely trips, does everything it's supposed to do. You can see the as it winds around here, when it catches right there, it trips the bail. Boom. Let's go ahead and put the anti-reverse on. The anti-reverse works. Okay. Snap it down. John, I hope that's helpful. If you see any parts there that you are missing that you need, let me know. I do happen to have a couple of old parts reels laying around that might be able to take care of finding parts for you that you need. And just let me know what you're looking for, what you don't have, and we'll see if we can't hook you up. All right, that's Rick Stivers, the Young Martin's Reels, signing out.